Alrighty. So this is our week one kind of like lecture notes. I will try to keep up on these, but I am teaching at OSU, but I'm also a graduate student. Um, it's an asynchronous class, so if you don't find the audio helpful, you can just look through the PowerPoints for the week, and that's fine. Also feel free to like look at the captions or speed or slow up the audio. But my name is Tara West. I am the instructor for this section of EDUTL 2368. It is the Introduction to Children's Literature course. Most of you are probably taking this because it fulfills a general requirement. Um, at least in my experience, is kind of most of y'all take it because of that. There should be some of you that are education majors as well, so hopefully this is particularly helpful. Um, this is week one, so it's going to be real quick, nitty gritty of like what's going on with the course, and also just to give you a little bit of background information as we start working through things. So first off, we are asynchronous, so I'm not going to see you guys unless we do any sort of Zoom meeting. And I really like trying to get to know you guys, so asynchronous is kind of a little difficult for me. But so just information, these are my two cats. The solid gray one is Ozzy. She is 14. And then the multicolored one with the very lovely tongue sticking out is Mana. She's like 8. Um, I'm originally from California. I moved to Arizona to do my undergraduate degree in education. So I have a teaching degree in teaching English at the middle school and high school level. I went back to my previous university for my master's program, and I have a master's specifically in literature, and I am currently at OSU in the PhD program for literature for children and young adults. So my specialization and like my area of expertise is more young adult literature. But I've been teaching this course long enough and done a lot of research and asked other people that are more specialized in children's literature. So we'll get kind of a really well-rounded perspective on what children's literature can be. And we will also kind of touch on young adult literature just because um, children's literature as a publishing category and a category of literature is a little wishy-washy depending on how people decide to define what it is, and we'll get into that as we progress. I am a huge reader. If you can see the photograph with the books, I have a lot of books. I also enjoy playing video games. So if you ever need like book recommendations, or if there's a game that you're playing that you're really enjoying, feel free to just like let me know. That's a-okay. Um, our syllabus, I tried to keep the information that is for this like important information. Our syllabus is very long. The big parts that I would pay attention to is the assignment descriptions, the assignment grade breakdown, and then the week by week like calendar that's at the very bottom of the syllabus. The rest of it is standard language that OSU requires every course to have. So if there's anything within that that you need to look back at, that's there for you. But we're not going to really cover that so much. Um, so we are asynchronous, but I will be available to meet with you through Zoom. But please email me beforehand. Because we're asynchronous, I don't really sit in my Zoom room and just like wait. Um, and I'm also taking classes, so it's just going to be a lot easier if you just want to touch base with me or ask about one of the assignments and you want to Zoom to just send me an email. That said, when you are emailing me, please use the email that is in like Carmen Canvas, the email that is in the learning management system where you'll be able to access our course. If you use my OSU email, I'm I get a lot of emails. I might end up accidentally losing it in the flood of other emails. So please do your best to use Carmen's email. Um, it's really, really important. If you end up emailing me through the OSU email, like it's okay. It's not the end of the world. But I do tend to get a lot of emails because I'm teaching and also a student. Um, we've got 4 different parts to your grade. You're going to have a reader autobiography, which is a really quick um, assignment at the beginning of the semester. You will have weekly like discussion board posts and responses. You are going to have a final project, and then I am going to give us a participation grade, and it's more so just like, are you actually doing the parts of the course that you need to? Are you posting your discussion boards? Are you responding back to someone? It's not necessarily me looking and seeing like, oh, this person's decided to respond like 7 different times to someone else's post in a week. I'm just bare minimum. Are you logging on? Are you turning in your assignments in like a timely manner? So that should be a fairly easy portion of the grade for you to get. I am going to emphasize this next part because I do think it's really important, and I have had a lot of students who have needed some help advocating for themselves. So I am going to get a little bit serious. If you have any sort of history of mental health um, issues or mental health swings or cycles, or if you have any sort of like genetic thing that kind of affects your mental health, please reach out to SLDS. It's the Student Disability Services at OSU. They are very, very good at what they do. They make the process about getting registered for accommodations for the university as painless as possible. And if you're a freshman and you're just coming in and you're like, no, I'll be fine, it is better to get registered with them at the beginning so that when you come into the next semester, all of your professors get an email that say, here are the accommodations. And so that you don't even necessarily have to have a conversation with your professors. They will automatically get that information. So it's less stress on you to have to try to reach out and be like, hey, like I struggle with anxiety really badly. And so sometimes I'm not super participatory, or I tend to not necessarily make eye contact. It kind of negates some of that. The SLDS department is here to help you be successful, even with having mental health issues. And it's a big thing that I emphasize because I also have issues with anxiety and depression. You guys are asynchronous, so it's not necessarily going to be a big issue, but I'm very upfront and honest with my students that I have in person of when I'm not having a great day. Like I will let my students know like, hey, my anxiety is really high. We're good. Class is going to be fine. But if I seem like a little bit short or a little bit all over the place, it's because my anxiety is acting up. And I very, very much believe that like we need to make sure that mental health things are part of a conversation, and not something that we should be worried about bringing up. Um, Seriousness over a little bit. All of the assignments are going to be due on Saturdays at 11:59 p.m. I know that having a Saturday night deadline is not necessarily great for everybody. You can always turn things in early. I do not have a problem with that. We're asynchronous, and I'm going to try my best to keep us ahead so that you'll have access to 3 weeks ahead of the week that we are currently in. So if you are super speedy or you've got like a time frame where you can kind of get through things quickly, you have the ability to do that. But those hard deadlines are going to be Saturdays at 11:59 p.m. Um, 2 more things that are really important. One, ask questions. Please, please, please. We're asynchronous, so I can't see your guys' faces when you're reading through things, or you're looking at the PowerPoints, or you're looking at the prompt for the weekly discussion boards. If something does not make sense, if it sounds odd, please just send me a quick email. I really enjoy helping people. That is one of the reasons why I enjoy teaching as much as I do. I cannot help you if you do not let me know that you have a question, even if it's something as simple as like, hey, it says that we're supposed to read from this page range to this page range, but that doesn't match up with what I'm seeing on the version that I found. Can you help me figure out where it is? Totally not a problem, but I'm not going to know that you need that help unless you send me an email. The last thing, and I'm going to put myself out on a limb here, please don't rat me out. You should not have to purchase any books for our course. I've tried to choose things carefully so that either I can find them for you and link them on our online course shell so that you don't have to try to do that Googling. If that is not available, if I'm not able to link the books for you, I've tried to make it so that they're pretty common novel titles so that you can get them through a public library for free. Or you can find somebody reading through them on YouTube for free. So please, 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 if you are broke, if you don't need to be spending money on books and stuff like that, please don't. Um, if you are somebody that likes having physical books, but by all means buy them if you are able to. But I tried to design our reading list specifically so that you do not have to worry about that. That being said, let me skip here really. Oh, this is here. I have in our syllabus a big long green box that has a list with links of different places that you can go to trying to get any of the books that we will be reading for free. So if you're like, I don't know how to do this, and there's a link there, please email me. I picked them for a reason, to try to help make it as easy as possible to get access to the books. But if you're having issues with trying to track them down, or you don't know how to get a local library card and then be able to like get things sent to you electronically, please just send me an email and I would be more than happy to try to like walk you through that. Going back this way. So again, the assignments, there's really only 3 of them. The final project, you will have 3 different options, and we will talk about that when we get there. You do not need to be worrying about it right now. The reader autobiography assignment is due fairly quickly. I think it's due the second week. Yeah, it's due the second week of our course. It is a very quick video where you introduce yourself very, very briefly, and I would rather have the majority of your video be you explaining either a piece of children's literature or a book that you remember reading in middle school or high school that was important to you, or you still kind of remember, or it's one that whenever someone asks you, like, what was your favorite book, that's the one that you go to. So yes, introduce yourself so that I know how to say your name. We are asynchronous, but I still would like to know how to say your name. You can give me a little bit more information about yourself if you would like to, but I would like the majority of that 2 to 3 minute video to focus on that literature. And if you are sitting here listening to this and going, I hate reading, I have never had a great experience, that's okay. You can tell me. You can pick a book that you were like, I hated this so much, I couldn't finish reading it, or I hated it so much, I didn't even try reading it. That is fine. I just need you to try to help me get a little bit better idea of like kind of where you are with children's literature, with reading as a whole. The discussion board posts and responses are going to be different every week. You will be in different groups every week. As long as Carmen works the way it's supposed to, you should hopefully be rotating between different students in the class to be able to respond to. The prompts are going to be different every week. And they're going to be focused on like our theme or our genre and the text that you're specifically working on reading for that week. So this is an introduction to children's literature course. My goals are for those of us that identify as readers who love reading to continue or rekindle like our enjoyment and our appreciation for children's literature. Most of us kind of reach college and adulthood and go, what's reading? I don't remember. I haven't touched a children's book. So part of my goal is for you to be able to have the ability to revisit some picture books that might bring back some memories and help you kind of remember that like reading can be fun and silly and goofy, and that's okay. Another goal is just to try to help us recognize that children's books are not just for children. They may be written and published and marketed towards children, but there is value in children's books that even adults can appreciate, that even adults can take out of. And sometimes these children books are really important and should be read by adults because of the way that they're able to tackle some of the topics that are in the books that we just don't get for adult books. Because for some reason those topics are considered like not interesting enough, or they're not important, or there's the assumption that by the time people are adults, they understand this topic. So why would they want something that's written from like a children's understanding? And the last thing, and this is something that I really try to work on with like every time I teach this course, is to try to expose you to new books or new genres that are worth the time to look into. Even if you get done reading something and you're like, you know, I don't think I would ever touch that on my own, you still got exposed to it. And that's kind of A big thing that I think is really important for readers, we tend to get stuck reading the same sort of genre or the same style of book. And sometimes it's good or it's fun even to kind of stretch yourself and try something that's a little different. Um, this is kind of more of our lecture bits for the first week. It's not too heavy, I promise. Um, Adults should read children's books. This is from a very, very well-known, well-renowned um, scholar. There's a video attached to the link if you would like to read it. There's some quotes that I've just pulled. So adults should be reading children's books because adults tend to think of them, oh, they're children's books, they're pictures books, they're just silly. There's no depth to them. There's no great lesson. There's no good understanding or representation of like society. And there's usually way more going on that because adults don't tend to read children's books, they completely miss. The second thing is that like these books help us going back and reading children's books. It kind of helps us reframe or remember what it was like to be a kid, to try to think a little bit differently, because you're taking on the perspective of a child or an animal, or some sort of object that has the ability to talk, in a way that doesn't tell us that we're reading wrong or that we're understanding wrong. There's a lot of freedom and open ability to read children's books that we don't typically see when we read young adult books, when we read adult books. So children books really help try to like recapture, refocus our imaginative ability when we are looking at something and reading. The third thing that this scholar kind of talks about is that there are really big, complex ideas about life that are in children's books, and the way that they are presented and talked about is usually really like open and welcoming, even for somebody that is like, I do not want to talk about this topic. This is not something that I would ever be interested in engaging with. The children's books are able to broach those topics in a way that is like user friendly and easy to understand. And the fourth thing is there's nothing stopping you from grabbing children's books to just enjoy, just to have a little bit of silliness, maybe to take some of the seriousness out of life and like our daily experiences. There's nothing wrong with going and grabbing something like Captain Underpants if you had those in middle school or elementary school and just kind of enjoying some like silly humor. Um, Children's literature as like a definition, there's a bunch of bullet points because this is really argumentative. There are scholars who will tell you that what I'm going to give you is 100% wrong. There are scholars that will say that what I've got for you is like the only way to try to think about children's literature. The literature feel is really like argumentative and confrontational when it comes to definitions. So these are just a couple of some of the most common definitions for what children's literature is. And the first one and kind of most common is that children's literature is defined, it's based on who the reader is. So if there are readers that are children that are reading this specific book or something from a specific author, then that book or author is automatically considered a children's literature text. Which you could see that hopefully that could be kind of wishy-washy and not super set in stone, because kids read up, kids read down. There are adults that read up and read down. There are kids that read up sometimes, read down sometimes. So they read up a level, down a level, maybe 3 or 4 levels. So that's kind of a really like broad definition because it really depends on who the person is that's the reader. The second definition is that children's literature is books that children read. And the caveat with this one is that it's usually books that are written about children, or they have a protagonist that is in the child range. Again, that's argumentative depending on what you decide to choose as an age range to define what a child is. Some people think that children are from like ages 5 to like 12. Some people think that like children are from like the moment you're born to when you're 18. It really honestly just kind of depends. So again, it's not really a solid definition. It's kind of wishy-washy. The third definition is um, kind of really interesting. So children's literature can be books that were written for adults, but children read them more, or children's literature can be books that were first written for children that have been acclaimed as like adults and for like adults. And the most contemporary example, unfortunately, is Harry Potter. Harry Potter started out as a children's book series, and as it progressed, it became like our main character grew, and the readers grew, and so it became more of not a children's literature series, but a young adult series, and then ended up being claimed as like more of an adult series. This doesn't happen that often. So this definition, while it is very unique, and I wanted to point it out, it's not very common way of thinking about children's literature. The last definition, I think, is kind of what most of us are familiar with thinking about when we think about children's literature. It is books that are written for children. There's also an implied, they're books that are written for children by adults. So they're not books written for children, written by children. They are specifically written by adults. And because this is being written by adults, these books that are written for children often have those morals or lessons or scenarios for their intended readers, which are children. So hopefully you kind of get from this that like there are several different ways to kind of define what children's literature is, and none of them are really clearly defined. None of these mention specifically like, okay, children's literature is from this age to this age. It is very, very subjective depending on your perspective. So these definitions are going to help kind of change our perspective as we read throughout the weeks. You might decide as we get to like week 4, week 5, that one of these definitions fits better with your understanding of children's literature, and that is a-okay. The point of having these here is to kind of give us all a foundation of like what should some of the definitions be that we think of when we think of children's literature. And also, as we read, hopefully you will find that some of the books that we read might be quote unquote children's literature, but they might challenge some of these common definitions.